Hi everyone, I'm Miss Lisa with the Wayne County Public Library. This week we're going to talk about community heroes, and we're going to read some fun books on fighter planes and the Tuskegee Airmen. And I hope you can catch my interview later on this week with one of the pilots at Seymour Johnson Air Force Base. So this is one of the planes that he flies, the F-15 right here. So let's look at fighter planes. This book was written by Jeffrey Zulka and published by Lerner Publications. Fighter planes. Whoosh! What's that up in the sky? It's a fighter plane. There are many kinds of fighter planes. All are fast fighting machines. F-15 Eagles can fly at 1,800 miles per hour. F stands for fighter. Fighters fight enemy planes. A-10 Thunderbolts are attack planes. They aim at places on the ground. The A stands for attack. FA-18 Hornets do two jobs. The Hornet is a fighter and an attack plane. F-16 Fighting Falcons fly high and fast. Falcons carry powerful weapons. F-117 Nighthawks fly at night. The Nighthawk's special shape makes it hard to find in the sky. FA-22 Raptors also have a special shape. The Raptor is hard to find too. It is fast and powerful. Who flies fighter jets? Pilots do. Pilots sit in the cockpit. Look at all the levers and buttons. They help the pilot control the plane. A canopy covers the cockpit. The canopy keeps the pilot safe. All fighter planes have wings. F-14 Tomcats can move their wings. They can stretch them out straight. They can also pull them back. Big jet engines power fighter planes. Engines push the plane through the sky. Fighter planes roll on wheels. The wheels are called landing gear. Ready to fly? The pilot drives the fighter to the takeoff spot. The controller tells the pilot which way to go. The pilot drives to the runway. The runway is a long, straight piece of land. Let's roll! The fighter jet speeds down the runway and takes off. The pilot kicks in the afterburners. They make the plane go even faster. The pilot tucks in the landing gear. The fighter plane climbs high in the sky. Fighter planes often fly in formation. The planes stay close together and look for the enemy. These fighter planes need more fuel. They will have to visit a tanker jet. A tanker jet carries lots of fuel. It sends fuel through a tube to the fighter jet. The tube is called a boom. This fighter plane is full of fuel. It is ready for its next job. We're lucky to have fighter planes on our side. Facts about fighter planes. Fighter planes fought in World War I. Fighters are numbered in the order they are invented, so an F-15 is an older type of plane than an F-16. The F-16 can fly up to 1,300 miles per hour. The F-15 goes up to 1,800 miles per hour. The speediest race car can only go about 200 miles per hour. Most fighter planes can fly at about 50,000 feet in the air. Regular airplanes only fly as high as 30,000 feet. The U.S. Navy and U.S. Marine Corps fly F-14s and FA-18s. These planes can take off and land on huge ships called aircraft carriers. An F-15 gets fuel about every 3,000 miles. You can also see the parts of a fighter plane. Next, we're going to read The Tuskegee Airmen's Mission to Berlin. This book was written by Thomas Kingsley Troop and illustrated by Jamiki Tejado, and it was published by Picture Window Books. Hi, I'm Maggie, and this is my brother Horace. We've been flies on the wall during important events in history. We saw Pablo Picasso shock the world with his paintings. We rode with settlers traveling west along the Oregon Trail. We've even watched the Berlin Wall crumble to the ground. One of our most dangerous adventures, it happened high in the sky toward the end of World War II in 1945. We noticed a small airfield, and Horace got excited. He loves airplanes. We learned that the Allies had pushed the Germans out of the area. Ramitelli Airfield was now the home base for a group of U.S. fighter pilots. They were called the Tuskegee Airmen. The Tuskegee Airmen were African American. This fact made them unusual. At the time, U.S. laws said that blacks couldn't eat, sleep, study, play, or work in many of the places that whites did. Most pilots in the U.S. military were white. Few people believed that blacks could fly a plane as well as whites. The soldiers met and slept in farmhouses near the edge of the airfield. We flew inside of one of them to check it out. A group of pilots huddled around the table. They were listening to their leader, Colonel Benjamin O. Davis, Jr. "The whole world is watching us. You know that," the colonel told his men. "And the truth is, many folks expect us to fail. I want you to prove them wrong." Horace and I wanted to see the Tuskegee Airmen in action, so we snuck aboard an airplane with Colonel Davis during a practice run. The plane really took off. We were almost thrown back against the colonel's goggles. Colonel Davis and his men flew over a train yard and began firing. Boxcars and engines exploded. Boom, boom, boom. The airmen turned the buildings into rubble. Horace and I stuck around the Ramitelli airfield for a few weeks. We watched the airmen practice and go on missions. Then one day, Colonel Davis had some big news. The Tuskegee Airmen would begin escorting heavy bombers into Germany. I wasn't sure what that meant, but the pilots were very excited. To help the men with their new missions, they received new airplanes from the U.S. military. Everyone seemed happy with the fighters. The P-51 Mustangs were fast and sleek. They were also able to fly long distances without refueling. Horace and I watched as the pilots tested out their new rides. They seemed faster than the older planes. The men thought this would help them defend the bombers while on their missions. On the morning of March 24, 1945, a large group of airmen gathered. Colonel Davis told them about their biggest, most important mission yet. The Red Tails would escort B-17 bombers partway to Berlin, Germany. Then another fighter group would meet them and take the bombers the rest of the way. Horace and I buzzed around Captain Roscoe Brown's airplane. In a blink, we were in the sky and the mission was underway. The Red Tails flew close to the bombers. Everything seemed to be going well. But when we arrived at the meet-up spot, the other fighter group wasn't there. It was late. Colonel Davis ordered his men to keep going. They would escort the B-17s all the way to Berlin. As we neared the final target, trouble appeared. Enemy jets. The fast-flying German jets shot at the Red Tails. Colonel Davis's fighter had engine trouble, so he had to drop out of formation and return to the airfield. He ordered the Red Tails to stay with the bombers no matter what. Captain Armour G. McDaniel took over as the leader, but before we knew it, his plane was shot down. He ejected and parachuted safely behind enemy lines. Things didn't look good for the Red Tails or the mission, or us. We didn't have time to think, though. A German jet screamed past our plane. Captain Brown pulled up and fired his guns. Rat-a-tat-tat! The jet burst into flames. We got one! Shortly after, Lieutenant Charles Brantley fired rat-a-tat-tat and hit his mark, too. A second enemy plane down. The bomber group was getting very close to its target. First Lieutenant Earl Lane aimed his sights at another jet. He fired rat-a-tat-tat. The jet began to smoke and a piece flew off. A total of 3 German jet planes were down. In no time, the B-17s were flying over their target. Horace and I watched as giant bombs dropped from their bellies. The target was a tank factory the Nazis were using to build more weapons. The bomb struck and the building exploded. Boom, boom, boom. The B-17s had hit their mark. Once we were all back at the base, the Tuskegee Airmen celebrated. They completed the longest bomber escort mission in World War II. Colonel Davis was proud of his pilots. The Red Tails earned many awards for their incredible service. They did so well, they were given the Presidential Unit Citation. They proved once and for all that African American pilots belonged in the air too. On May 7, 1945, Germany surrendered to the Allies. 3 months later, Japan also surrendered. World War II was over. Soldiers were free to return to their homes and families. The Tuskegee Airmen proved to the world that they belonged in the air. Their efforts helped the U.S. military work toward an equal treatment of all soldiers.